whilst people's general reaction to the new Pixel phones has been a little bit mixed, some people are saying it's a little bit underwhelming, there is a lot going on behind the scenes that makes these a really fantastic proposition. In this video, we're going to compare the brand new Pixel 2 XL to the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Let's start with the Note 8's advantages. The Note 8 is IP68 water resistant compared to the Pixel's IP67, but to be honest, a lot of people exaggerate how much difference this really makes. All it means is the Note 8 can stay for the same amount of time underwater, but just 50 centimeters deeper. However, the Note 8 does have some other advantages which could make all the difference. It supports SD cards, has a headphone jack, and can also do wireless charging. And to be honest, it's a complete brain teaser as to why the late 2017 flagship Pixel 2 phones can't do wireless charging. On top of that, the Note 8 has the S Pen, which if that is any use to you, the Pixel 2 XL has no close alternative. Now from my personal experience using the Note 8 as my daily phone, it's the kind of thing I found is cool in concept, but I don't find myself using it very much, just because most things are easy enough to do with your fingers. Having said that, Samsung with the Note 8 has also implemented some pretty cool multitasking features. The ability to open dual apps, for example, 2 apps that automatically open at the same time in split screen mode, I think is really cool. Now so far, it's probably not sounding very good for the Pixel 2 XL. Having said that, it's not a one-way battle. What the Pixel 2 XL loses in those things, it gains in other areas. It is a cheaper phone, fairly significantly so. It also has a dual stereo speaker system on the front, which when you compare to the Note 8 single one on its bottom, is completely game-changing. The sound is not only clearer, fuller, but also more immersive because it has that directional audio effect. Also, when it comes to Google phones, what a lot of people would consider an advantage is the Google-specific features. For example, the Pixel will have stock Android, it'll have always up-to-date software, it's got the easy access assistant, you can simply squeeze the side of the phone to bring it up, and that is genuinely useful. On top of that, you've got Google's own proprietary software, such as Google Lens, which essentially makes the camera far more intelligent, so you could take a photo of perhaps a business card and it'll automatically be able to add the number to your contacts. Very quickly before we carry on, I've been working 14 hours every single day to really try and hit 1 million subscribers, so if you could help by subscribing, that would mean so much to me. Holding the two side by side in your hand, you'll notice the Pixel 2 XL feels not only far thinner, but also far lighter. The combination of these two specifications mean the Note 8 in comparison feels like a different level of heft. In terms of the way they look, it's always going to be a little bit more subjective. Whilst the Pixel 2 XL is surrounded by aluminium and glass, the Note 8 is covered with Gorilla Glass 5 on both the front and the rear. Now personally, the way I see it is this. The Note 8 plays it safe, it changes almost nothing in terms of design from the S8, but in that sense, it pleases a lot of people. The S8 was great in terms of its design, it's simple but effective. On the other hand, and in complete contrast, if we compare the Pixel 2 XL with the Pixel XL last year, there have been some huge changes, and whilst the design is definitely not for everyone, I actually think it looks really rather nice. On top of that, Google's color options, they've actually introduced with the Pixel 2 XL a black and white option, which I really like. It's actually got an orange power button, and the combination of the two really contrasting colors is very eye-catching in a good way. When you compare the two side by side, the Note 8 looks kinda bland in comparison, but notice that some people might prefer that. So then of course we've got displays, and here the Pixel 2 XL has the smaller of the two. It has a 6-inch display compared to the Note 8's 6.3-inch. Now in terms of how much you notice that, there is a slight noticeable difference. The Note 8 feels a little bit larger, a little bit more immersive. On top of that, the Note 8 has a taller display because it's an 18.5:9 aspect ratio compared to the Pixel's 18:9. Also, what a lot of people have been pointing out when it comes to the Pixel 2 XL is the fact that even though Google has called this a full-screen smartphone, there are some very noticeable bezels on the device. And when you've used both smartphones, the difference really is rather obvious. I think the way the Note 8's display melts around the edges of the phone is fantastic. It really works, it really adds to immersion and this feeling of seamlessness. The Google Pixel, on the other hand, doesn't have a curved display, and with these two thicker side bezels, is actually the wider of the two phones, even with a smaller display. But in terms of display technology, whilst I'm sure you're all aware the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 uses a Super AMOLED panel, the Google Pixel 2 XL uses a POLED one. What that means is it's based off a plastic substrate, and therefore it can be slightly thinner and slightly lighter as a display. Having said that, in terms of color reproduction, both of them use OLED as their base technology. In terms of what that implies for the viewing experience, the Note 8 does have some noticeably richer colors. Having said that, this almost seems like a purposeful choice on Google's part. The technology is there in the Google smartphone to display a similar palette of colors to the Note 8, but the company has purposefully decided against this to go for a slightly more natural look. In terms of performance, both phones are going to be very similarly matched. Both of them have the Snapdragon 835, but whilst the Pixel 2 XL has 4 gigs of RAM, the Note 8 has 6. Having said that, in terms of UI and in terms of doing very basic tasks, the Pixel 2 XL actually feels like the faster phone, more than likely due to the really good software. It feels very reminiscent of the OnePlus 5 in terms of how fast and responsive it is, and compared to Note 8's slightly heavier version of software, aka TouchWiz, just a little bit more responsive. expensive. Having said that, due to the extra 2 gigs of RAM, if you are the kind of person who does a lot of extreme multitasking or runs a lot of apps in parallel, you might just find the Note 8 will pull ahead a little bit. In terms of playing games, you will literally barely notice the difference. Both of these are going to be fantastic gaming devices. Very few Android games actually utilize more than 4 gigs of RAM anyway. When the curtain was pulled off the Note 8 for its unveiling, a lot of people were initially quite concerned about its battery life. The Pixel 2 XL is going to have no such problem. It has a larger capacity battery, 3520 versus the Note 8's 3300 mAh. But not only that, it also has a smaller display, which is going to be less draining, but also it has less bloatware. And whilst the Note 8 has a dual 12 megapixel camera, the Pixel only has a single 12 megapixel camera. Having said that, one of the main benefits of having a dual camera is that you can take portrait mode photos, where you blur the background and keep the subject in focus. But with its incredible new software, Google has managed to actually keep this same functionality even with a single camera. And whilst I haven't tested it in detail, from my initial testing back at the event, it looked really promising. Even in a fairly low level of light, it managed to take portrait photos on not only the rear camera, but the front one too, which is definitely something the Note 8 can't do. In terms of video quality, both are going to be on a similar wavelength. They can both do 4K video at 30 frames per second, which is good. But on the other hand, it's kind of disappointing to see that both of these phones have been overshadowed by the iPhone 8, which can do 4K video at 60. Now, one thing that Google did pick up on at the event was the fact that the Pixel 2 would have even steadier video, because it's not only using optical image stabilization, but it's using an electronic image stabilization algorithm too. And combining these two together, apparently you'll get silky smooth video. Now, we will have to test this a little bit more in person to reach a final conclusion on it, but it does seem promising so far. To summarize, it's quite easy to see why a lot of people are disappointed. Google, for a long period of time, has been teasing huge things about its upcoming smartphones. It's almost making it seem like these were going to solve every single problem we had with our phones, but unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. Having said that, that doesn't change the fact that the Pixel 2 XL does usher in a new era for Android, a smarter, more seamless era, and we're going to notice that more on the software front than we are on the hardware front. Compared to the Note 8, these are two very different phones for two slightly different kinds of users. If you're really interested in battery life and sound quality, then the Pixel 2 XL does seem like the better option. For the multitaskers though, and people who really want to enjoy widescreen content, the Note 8 seems like the better choice. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you could subscribe to the channel. I'm Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.